Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Narsinghaya Namaste Jise Avi Bhava Vajranak Vajran Sakhalasayam Randaya Tamo Grasa Grasa Om Swaha. O Bhai Matmini Bhuvishta Om Ksham Narayanam Namaspritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, Text 20. The verses on the board, so kindly repeat after me, line by line.
Време, че той, божествен Вишну, е безкраен и отподиран на него. Защото никой не може да го пише правилно. Великите плодове не могат да спечелят благодарението на Божието щастието, великите водата на лиsti. За самата те служи на Бога, въпреки че той не иска да се направи.
Mukam karoti bhachalam bhagamanayati grim vikripatatam mande Shri Gurun Dinatadanam. So it is said concerning Sri Krishna's enjoyment, self-enjoyment. Atmaramasya tasyasti prakritya nasamagama. Krishna is called Atmarama because he's always situated in happiness of his own self, Atmarama. He's always enjoying his own self, and his own self includes unlimited spiritual potencies. So, Krishna's internal potency is Lakshmi Ji. Lakshmi Ji, the goddess of fortune, who is originally the original Lakshmi, just like the original form of Vishnu is Sri Krishna himself. So the original form of Lakshmi is Srimati Radharani, but just as Krishna has unlimited expansions, so also does Srimati Radharani. She expands herself in so many Lakshmi forms. So, Srimati Radharani and all of her expanded forms, they're known generally as the Shakti Tattva. The Shakti means energy. So Krishna's energetic expansions. So Krishna has two divisions of energy, as I mentioned last night. Internal and external. Now, an easy guide to understand what is the difference between the internal and external features of Krishna's energy, because after all, Krishna's energy is just one. Ultimately, there is only one Shakti. So, how do we know if it's in its internal feature or external feature? So that is determined by who's enjoying. If Krishna is enjoying, then it's intimate. And if someone else is trying to enjoy, then it's external.
Един лесен начин, който може да разберем дали това е вътрешни или външни аспекти на енергията за Кришна, защото границата на енергията за Кришна от нас, не само на наша акция, така на различни. Това може да познаем от това, който не създава. Това на Кришна, то когато тази енергия за своето вътрешно проявление да създаваме ние, това е енергията на своето външно.
Just like when Rukmini, who is a principal form of Shakti Tattva, a primary expansion of Srimati Radharani. So when Rukmini Devi was coming from the temple of Durga Devi in the capital city of her father, and she was going to be taken to her wedding. She was supposed to be married by arrangement to Shishupal, but she had written a letter to Krishna to please save her from that. So when she came from the temple, there were many kings and princes who had come to attend the marriage. And when they saw her, she was so beautiful, so attractive, that they became bewildered. And they were falling to the ground. Even they were falling off of their horses and off of their elephants, becoming completely stunned by seeing her beauty. So, the goddess of fortune has the name Shri, which means very beautiful. And Lakshmi is another name. Lakshmi, of course, indicates opulence. So, all beauty and opulence is meant for Krishna's enjoyment, because it is his energy. But just as we saw, the conditioned soul, when he's lusty, then he also becomes attracted to enjoy the beauty and opulence of Krishna's energy. So they become interested, as it is said in this verse, to attain vibhuti. That word is used. Vibhuti means the favor of the goddess of fortune. lusty living entities are desiring the favor of the Lord's energy. So she expands herself in illusory or material features which they can try to enjoy. So anything that appears beautiful, attractive, that we desire to possess because we feel it will improve our opulence, this is all the expanded energy of the goddess of fortune. But a devotee is never interested in enjoying Krishna's energy. That doesn't mean that a devotee does not enjoy. What a devotee enjoys is very nicely explained by Lord Kapila Dev in 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll just read some of these translations from Lord Kapila Dev's statements. They're very instructive. So Lord Kapila Dev says, upon seeing the charming forms of the Lord, smiling and attractive, and hearing his very pleasing words, the pure devotee almost loses all other consciousness. His senses are freed from all other engagements. And he becomes absorbed in devotional service. Thus, in spite of his unwillingness, he attains liberation without separate endeavor. Because liberation, as we explained yesterday in the class, we mentioned this goddess of impersonal liberation. That's also an expansion of the opulence of the Supreme, the internal potency. So, yogis and mystics who are not devotees, they endeavor to enjoy this opulence, liberation. So a pure devotee, he does not enjoy the energy of Krishna, not even the energy of liberation. He's enjoying seeing Krishna. He's enjoying serving Krishna, engaging his senses in Krishna. And thus automatically, without even his desire, he receives the benediction of the goddess of liberation.
По този начин, така от само себе си, без тебе, дори да желая това, те постигат благословието на богинята на освобождението.
So Lord Kapila goes on. Thus, because he is completely absorbed in thought of me, the devotee does not desire even the highest benediction obtainable in the upper planetary systems. Including Satyaloka. He does not desire the 8 material perfections obtained from mystic yoga. Nor does he desire to be elevated to the kingdom of God. That also is referring to liberation. There are 5 kinds of liberation to be promoted to Vaikuntha. But a devotee only wants to serve Krishna. If he can serve Krishna in hell, then he'll go to hell. Doesn't matter. He doesn't care if it's Vaikuntha or hell, as long as he can serve the Lord. Yet even without desiring them, the devotee enjoys, even in this life, all the offered benedictions. The Lord continued, "My dear mother, devotees who receive such transcendental opulences are never bereft of them. Neither weapons nor the change of time can destroy such opulences. Because the devotees accept me as their friend, their relative, their son, preceptor, benefactor, and supreme deity. They cannot be deprived of their possessions at any time. So the point that's being made here is that Krishna is inseparable from his transcendental paraphernalia, his transcendental opulence. So, by becoming attached to Krishna through devotional service, then a devotee has access to Krishna's transcendental opulence. Although the devotees do not want to enjoy Krishna's opulence. Just as it was said here, the devotees don't desire even to go to the kingdom of God. But of course they go, because that's where Krishna is. That's where the devotees serve Krishna eternally. That's where Krishna is enjoying. The devotees want to assist Krishna in his enjoyment of his pastimes. So of course, Krishna brings them there. Although they're not going there with the view of enjoying themselves Krishna's opulence.
Защото там те служат на Кришна вечно. Там Кришна се наслаждава и те искат да служат на неговото наслаждение. И затова Кришна ги отвежда там. И те не отиват там с намерението да се наслаждават на Кришна.
So it is said, the devotee attains opulence that far surpasses any opulence visible in the material world.
И затова се казва, че трябва да постигат такова богатство, което превъзхожда многократно всички богатства, които могат да се открият в материалния свят.
Because wherever Krishna is, that is the unlimited source of all opulence. Because there is Krishna's eternal potency, eternally engaged in his service.
Защото където да се намира Кришна, Кришна винаги е източникът на безкрайно богатство. Защото там, където е Кришна, там е и неговата вътрешна енергия.
Just like when Krishna, 5,000 years ago, appeared on the earth planet, then there are many prayers in the Srimad Bhagavatam declaring how the earth planet, particularly the parts of the places on the earth where the Lord is displaying his pastimes, how now the region of the Lord's pastimes on earth, like Mathura, Vrindavan, Dwarka, they're far surpassing the opulence of the heavenly planets. The demigods like Brahma and Indra were coming to Dwarka to see Krishna, and they were being stunned when they saw the transcendental opulences of the Lord. And even today, those devotees who have transcendental vision, they can see Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwarka as being this spiritual world full of all transcendental opulence and beauty. So that is eternal. Now, as I said, there is an expanded reflection or an illusory expansion of the internal potency. That is known as Maya, and that includes all the attractions of the material world. So non-devotees, they're endeavoring to enjoy this expansion, this particular illusory expansion of the internal potency. So in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 28, there's one verse I will read about that. In this verse, the word Shri is found. Shri meaning beauty, and as I said, it's also the name of Lakshmiji. Of course, that's referring to spiritual beauty, which is eternal. So, the verse says, when King Puranjan was embraced by Kalakanya, Kalakanya means the daughter of time. He gradually lost all his beauty. Having been too much addicted to sex, he became very poor in intelligence and lost all his opulence. Being bereft of all possessions, he was conquered forcibly by the Gandharvas and the Yavanas. So, this is from the story of King Puranjan. Puranjan is an allegorical figure who represents any materialistic sense enjoyer. And this verse is explaining how by this very endeavor to enjoy the energy of Krishna, by that endeavor itself, one becomes bereft of all opulence. One becomes old and wrinkled and foolish. Whatever possessions he has gathered by his work in life, he can no longer maintain. And finally, his enemies overwhelm him and plunder him. So, material opulence, the illusory expansion of the spiritual opulence, is like a fire. And the foolish sense enjoyer is like an insect, like this moth, which becomes overwhelmed by attraction to enjoy the fire, and thus he flies into the fire. So he's flying into the fire with the intention of enjoying it. But what happens? He's burnt up. So that means he's lost all intelligence. In the material world, we see the living entities who are attracted to enjoy this material body. By that attraction, that means they've lost all good intelligence. Isn't it? You see, among the dogs attract one dog attracted to another dog. One pig attracted to another pig. One bug attracted to another bug. So, this means no intelligence, foolishness. We can see that from our vantage point as human beings. When we see one dog following behind another dog for sex, then we take it as a joke. Just see, look at this nasty life. Such foolish animals, we think. Because we're looking as human beings and we're thinking, how could anyone be attracted to such a skinny, dirty body like a dog's body, or a big, fat, dirty pig body? How could anyone want to enjoy that? They must be very foolish. But yet the human being is overwhelmed by the same thing. If it's a human form, if a man sees the form of a woman, then he's suddenly overwhelmed and he's following behind. But what is he actually seeing? He's gazing upon what he thinks is the beautiful face of a lovely woman. And he's losing all intelligence. He just wants to enjoy that. He'll spend any amount of money to enjoy this. He'll sleep out in the rain to enjoy this. But he's simply attracted to a ghostly skull. Isn't it? When you see this skull, this bone of the head, then that immediately makes us think of ghosts. Some flesh is covering it, and then some skin is covering that. And the big holes in the front have been filled up with big jelly eyes. And the teeth are jammed up in their place. They haven't fallen out yet, so it still looks nice. So that's what's really there. Huh? But due to lust, he has become very foolish. And he's thinking, oh, it's so wonderful. Just like sometimes you may have had the experience. Some people, they sleep when they're sleeping. So sleeping means mode of ignorance, and they're dreaming. Dreaming means illusion. And suddenly in their dream, they have what they think is a brilliant revelation. A brilliant realization comes to them. And they wake up and they're thinking, oh, such a stunning realization. I cannot forget this. I'll write it down. And then in the morning, I'll be able to remember. So then they write it down and they go back to sleep. Next morning they wake up. Oh yes, I had that wonderful realization. Let me see what I wrote. And when they take the paper, they read, when potatoes are happy, they sing. And then they're very confused. Last night when I woke up, I thought this was the most brilliant realization. I thought that if I tell the world my realization, they will celebrate me as being the new Einstein. But now it's only this nonsense. What happened? Or when a person becomes drunk, very intoxicated, then he may be, he's dancing. He's dancing in front of everyone. He's dancing on the street or at some big gathering, some party. He's dancing in the middle of the room. And he thinks he's doing the most wonderful dance. Or he may want to deliver a lecture to everyone. And so he starts to talk. And he thinks that this is the most intelligent, the most meaningful lecture that they've ever heard. And from his point of view, from his perception, the people are all standing around and they're just completely overwhelmed by his dance or by his speech, and they want to see more. You see, they're all surrendering to him. So he's dancing even stronger, or he starts to lecture even louder.
Неговата реч, той започва още по-усилено да смята или да говори още по-високо, защото мисля, че всички вече са покорени от него.
But of course, the real fact is, he's just a fool. He's just making a fool out of himself. And of course, people are watching, they're laughing and thinking, look at him, he's drunk.
Истината е, че той се превърнал в пълен глупак.
So this is everyone who's trying to enjoy matter, who's becoming attracted to the form, is in exactly that same condition. Now someone may argue that, well, but how are you devotees of Krishna any different? You're always stuck in these activities of devotional service. Which, as far as I'm concerned, is just craziness. But you're completely absorbed in it, and you think it's so wonderful. And you're also growing old, and you will also die. And you think that, well, when you get old, then you'll go off to Vrindavan and face death there. And you think Vrindavan is so wonderful. But as far as I'm concerned, it's just, a typical Indian village. Who wants to go there? When I get old, I want to go to Miami. You see, that city in Florida, Miami, is well known. It's where all the... it's okay. There's still some water there. This is a place where all the old people go when they've retired from their work and they have only a few years left. They all make a pilgrimage to Miami.
Така Майами е един много добре известен град в Флорида, където всички стари хора, след да се пенсионират и да станат няколко години живот, живат като него.
And they have these hotels on the beach hotels, and they're filled up with 70, 80-year-old men and ladies.
Там има хотели на самия плаж, които са пълни с 70-80 годишни старци, баби.
And the men are dressed up in very loud kinds of colors, these big ties with with red dots on them. Flowery colored shirts. And a big fancy silk handkerchief in his pocket hanging out. And then the women, they have their hair in some far out style. And they have their, what they think are their sexy glasses on. These funny shaped glasses. And too much makeup, big lipstick and... And they have these big necklaces of, pearls, big huge pearls around their necks. So then in the evening, in these hotels, there is a band playing this music from 1930, 1940, dance, jazz. And these old people are out there, and they're dancing, and they're drinking, and they're talking to each other. Hey, blah, 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 blah.
И тези хора те танцуват, или пият, или разговарят оживено един с друг.
So the materialistic people think, yes, that's how I want to end my life. That's happiness, at least.
И материалистите мислят, че точно така биха завършили живота си, защото това е най-малкото щастие.
You, Hare Krishnas, you want to go to this poor village in India and just sit down somewhere and chant Hare Krishna over and over again. And you think that's happiness.
You, Hare Krishna, искате да идете в това бедно сълце, седнете някъде, дарите Hare Krishna до прибавите и мислите, че това е щастие.
So, you're laughing at us, what we do, but we're laughing at you too. You think we're ridiculous, but we think you're ridiculous.
Вие се смеете на нас, но това, което ние правим, ние се смеем на вас. Вие казвате, че ние сме смешни, но ние казваме, че вие сте смешни.
So Srila Prabhupada, he once wrote a small booklet. The title of it was, Who is Crazy? And that was the subject of this booklet. That we're saying the materialists are crazy and they're saying we're crazy. So he was raising the question, who is crazy? So, but one thing concerning these materialists and their enjoyment is that although they've sworn themselves, they've dedicated their lives to enjoying matter, but we see that they're also becoming exhausted and disgusted with the attempt to enjoy matter.
Но ние виждаме, че тези материалисти, които са приели обет, те са заклели да се наслаждават. Дори те в един момент се чувстват изтощени и напълно облетени от наслаждение.
You see, in order to enjoy matter, to have their sense enjoyment, they must become lusty. And this lust is like a fire. So it burns up their energy. And then they become exhausted.
За да могат да се наслаждават на материята, за да могат да получат това стилно наслаждение, те трябва да бъдат обладани от Бог, а тази Бог е като огън, който поглъща енергията им. И затова те накрая стигат изтощени.
And then they have to rest.
И тогава те трябва да се починат.
So after their wild party, you see they have their wild party, they're dancing. But then, especially these old people, then for the whole next 24 hours, they're just sleeping. They're completely exhausted. They don't want to do anything. So they're in their hotel room, they have headache, and they're taking pills. And if some friend comes on the door, boom, 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 and he comes in, he has a party hat on and a big cigar. Hey, let's go dancing. They go, no.
И след това някой приятел започва да тропи по вратата, нахлувате с такава синтетична шапка на главата си и голяма пулка. Хайде да ходим да танцуваме.
So if we study the life of these karmis, we find out that most of the time that's what their life is like. Most of the time they're frustrated. Most of the time they're not enjoying. Most of the time, they're either recovering from some heavy bout of sense gratification, or they're also working. They have to work to earn money to enjoy, so they have to work. That's how they spend most of their time. But a devotee is enjoying all of the time. The reason for that is that his enjoyment is not based on the body, it's not based on Maya. As we read in the explanation of Lord Kapila, the enjoyment of a devotee is his service to Krishna. And so, one who's engaged in service to Krishna, then he's always tasting what is called Nava Nava Rasa, newer and newer taste of ecstatic bliss. Means it's always increasing. It's never exhausted. The material rasa, they get a little taste of it, one night, one wild party, and then it's gone. And then, after a few days, they may get it back and they can enjoy a little more. But all of this depends on the body, of course. So this body is every day growing older. So, disease is coming to the body and reducing its power to endure. And finally, death comes. And death for the materialist is the greatest tragedy. There's no way they can bluff their way through death. No, none of these materialists die with a smile on their face. Because death negates the very foundation of their whole conception of happiness, well, their whole conception of reality. That's this body. They're thinking, I am the body, and my life is meant to enjoy the body. And death comes and takes the body away. So they're forced to undergo this tragedy of old age, disease, death, because their position as so-called enjoyer is false. So therefore they're attracted only to the false, reflected, perverted forms of Krishna's vibhuti, his spiritual opulence. Beginning with this body. This body is the primary reflected opulence. So, they have no standing in reality. So, how can they ever find happiness? Whereas a devotee, his position is real, because Krishna is the supreme reality. So, a devotee makes Krishna the center of his existence. So, a devotee, by serving Krishna, he becomes what is called tadya. Tadya means the personal paraphernalia of the Lord. Just like the murti of Sri Sadbhuj, you see, he's holding in his hands bow and arrow and flute and water pot and danda. These are tadya. So, similarly, one who surrenders himself completely to Krishna's service is also counted as the tadya, the paraphernalia of Krishna. So that means the devotee is he's brought to the platform of a position in Krishna's internal potency. And of all of Krishna, all the features of Krishna's internal potency, the highest opulence is said to be the Prema Madhurya. Prema Madhurya means that Krishna is in Vrindavan. Krishna, his pastimes in Vrindavan. He's surrounded by devotees endowed with wonderful love of Godhead. It is said that this opulence of Krishna, that he is surrounded by such devotees as Srimati Radharani and Nanda and Yashoda and the other eternal residents of Vrindavan, whose hearts are overflooded by Krishna Prema. So this opulence of Krishna, it far surpasses the majesty of Vaikuntha. Because this opulence of Krishna, Krishna is actually attached to. He's personally very attracted to this. So, just like Krishna is called Madan Mohan, he's the attractor of, or he makes, he bewilders Kamadev, Cupid, the god of lust. But Srimati Radharani is called Madan Mohan Mohini. She bewilders Krishna by her love for Krishna. So Krishna is so much appreciative of Srimati Radharani's love that he always desires her association. Whereas, as it is said here, in this verse, that the goddess of fortune renders service unto the Lord, although he's unwilling to have such service. So the goddess of fortune is a majestic expansion of Radharani, who is with Krishna in Vaikuntha Lok. So as we read here, the Lord is not so much interested in this majestic feature. But by His mercy, He's permitting Lakshmi Ji to render services to Him. But In Vrindavan, the seat of Krishna's intimate pastimes with his devotees, Krishna becomes very much beholden to Srimati Radharani, the gopis, and all the residents of Vrindavan for their intense love. And all residents. So in the Krishna consciousness movement, this sampradaya of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in our devotional service, we are following in the footsteps of such residents of Vrindavan. So this is the greatest fortune of all. So are there any questions? She appeared as the daughter of King Vrishabhanu and his wife Kirtida. But according to at least one scriptural account that I've seen, she was not born to them, but King Vrishabhanu found her floating on a lotus in the Jamuna River when he went there to take bath as a newborn, in other words, a very tiny baby. So he took this little baby girl home, and he and his wife raised her as their daughter. And they were so captivated by her because she was such a beautiful little girl. But there was one thing that was very tragic about this little girl, was that she was blind. One day Mother Yashoda came to visit Kirtida because they're good friends, and Mother Yashoda brought baby Krishna. So like mothers do, when they both have little babies, then they like to put the babies together that they can play, have association. So Krishna was curious to see little Srimati Radharani. So he went and looked at her. And as soon as Krishna looked at her, then Radharani began to look back, and Kirtida was very overjoyed because she could understand. Now her little daughter can see. She had gotten her sight back. And when Krishna looked at her face, so the meaning of this pastime is that Radharani is so much attached to Krishna that until she can see Krishna, she's not interested in seeing anything. Any other questions?
So, in near-death experiences, people often see an effulgent being, which you consider as Vishnu. And this being completely changes their lives, and they understand that there is something wrong. Could describe what you saw when Krishna revealed himself to you?
Well, we don't. This is not proper to equate realization of Krishna with some mystical experience. It's not the same. This effulgent being that people see in the near-death experience, it's not Vishnu. Everyone has a particular deva, demigod, which is guiding their destiny.
Това случило същество, което хората виждат, когато вижда смъртта им, не е Вишну. Защото за всеки човек отговаря определен полубог, дева, който ръководи съдбата.
This is known from Vedic literature, but also even in Western culture there is this concept of what they call guardian angel, some angel that guards each person.
Това е в западната култура, е познато като ангел-пазител, като ангел, който ръководи съдбата.
So we are in this body by the arrangement of the demigods, and there is one particular demigod, or Upadeva, lesser demigod, who is appointed just to lead us through our destiny in this life. So yes, once people have had near-death experiences, sometimes they see an effulgent being who tells them that no, it's not time for you to leave your body, go back. So that is that particular deva.
Този
this is not an actual spiritual experience. Of course, it is a supernatural. No, we shouldn't even say supernatural. But I guess they use the word paranormal. It just means it's beyond our normal experience of things, but that doesn't mean that it is spiritual.
Това е нерухомо преживяване. Може да е свръхестествено преживяване. Тази дума, която е
And Srila Prabhupada would never answer questions like you've asked about what did you see when Krishna revealed himself to you. Because this is a whole misleading conception about Krishna consciousness. There's this standard method by which devotee advances in Krishna consciousness. That standard method is the standard process which is given in the Shastra, given by the spiritual master, which is taught by the sadhus, the great authorities in the disciplic succession. So this method of advancement in Krishna consciousness is centered on service. The method is called Bhakti Yoga. So it is the method of becoming the eternal servant of Krishna. And as one becomes fixed in that service, unshakable in his service, that is actually his advancement. Mystical visions of Krishna are not considered very important by the devotees in our sampradaya. Once in India, Srila Prabhupada was giving a lecture program, and during the question and answer session, one man was speaking up and telling Srila Prabhupada that he had seen Krishna. He was describing how he'd had this vision of baby Krishna. And Prabhupada's reply was, because Prabhupada had been speaking on Bhakti Yoga, so Prabhupada heard all this, and then Prabhupada said, well, if you've seen him, then why don't you serve him? Actually, in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sampradaya, the topmost platform, the most advanced platform, is service in the mood of Vipalamba, Vipralamba means separation.
Всъщност, тази самопределение в читание, най-висшето служение, най-издигнато и възвишено служение, това е Випраламба, т.е. служението и раздяла.
So, when Krishna left Vrindavan and went to Mathura, then the residents of Vrindavan, they were plunged in an ocean of grief, an ocean of separation from Krishna. When Uddhava came from Mathura to console the residents of Vrindavan, he was so astonished to see their unflinching love of Krishna. Uddhava. Now Krishna had left them. But there was no question of them giving up their attachment to Krishna, giving up their service to Krishna. So Uddhava could see that actually, although they were not seeing Krishna before their eyes, Krishna was ever with them in the heart. Therefore, they were so much absorbed in thought of Krishna. So Uddhava was so impressed with their high standard of Krishna consciousness that he was desiring to become a blade of grass in Vrindavan, so that the gopis, when they're going to and fro in their duties, performing their various duties, and they're always chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna as they do their services. He was hoping that they might step on him. This way he would get the dust of their lotus feet. Whereas we see among the exalted demigods, even Lord Brahma, not to speak of others, that they only, rarely, only sometimes, are getting the darshan of the avatar of the Lord when he appears. So, when the Lord is displaying his pastimes in the universe, then the demigods, they're fully Krishna conscious. But when the Lord withdraws his pastimes, there's no avatar visible. And then it is seen these demigods tend to become forgetful. And they become a little puffed up, and then they get themselves into trouble. Some powerful demon who personifies their offenses appears, and they cannot defeat this demon. Sometimes the demons drive them out of the heavenly planet. Then they pray to the Lord very humbly. And the Lord again appears and saves them. So their Krishna consciousness depends on Krishna's appearing before their senses. But the residents of Vrindavan were not seeing Krishna after he left, but they were fully absorbed in the remembrance of Krishna. In other words, they were on such a wonderful platform of love of God that the remembrance of Krishna, you see, Krishna is absolute. So if one's mind becomes so pure that he remembers Krishna in ecstatic love, then that remembrance is Krishna. There's no difference. But if we forget Krishna, then that means, what does that mean? It means we're not very advanced at all. If Krishna always has to manifest himself in some way in front of our eyes, so, oh, come here, Krishna. But then if our eyes cannot see him, then, immediately we're becoming carried away by Maya. So this is very low, it is some form of Krishna consciousness, but low standard.
Кришна трябва прекъснато да се появява пред очите ми и да ни казва със себе си, о, Харе Кришна.
So this is a low